daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Liverpool podcast brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. It is the Friday forecast and we are looking ahead to the return of Premier League action this weekend. I've got my usual partner in crime, resident coach Irby White. Irby, how are you? How are things stateside?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. God, I tell you what, this international break has felt like an eternity, like longer than May to August waiting for the Prem to return. I don't know what it is with the 3 matches we lost in a row, but I'm ready. It's just need that feel-good win, especially against who we're up against Sunday. So I'm good.
Yeah, and you're right. It kind of the fact that we went into this international break off the back of 3 straight defeats, 2 in the Premier League. It just made that international break just that much longer. But the players that are on, have been away on duty, it seems like most of them have had fairly decent international breaks. McAllister scored twice for Argentina, who are qualified. Szoboszlai scored for Hungary in their 2-2 draw against Portugal. Mohamed Salah scored twice for Egypt. They've secured their qualification for the World Cup. So a few of our players have, had pretty decent international breaks. You're going to hope that this is going to now be, transferred into the Premier League now, because it wasn't ideal going into that break off the back of those defeats.
And I have to slip it in there. Senegal, Sadio Mane, happy to see them qualified too. Yeah, it's... especially these early international breaks, just the 3 that you have in the first 9 weeks of the season, it feels like it's very stop and go, can slow momentum, can slow your momentum if you're doing it another team at the top, and that's why you see the table fluctuating early on, because I feel like teams it's just very stop and go. And so now I'm hoping that, we can kick on, especially, we talked about it, I think I mentioned it on the last episode, of what 3 losses would feel like going into the break. And it sucked, to be honest, as a supporter, but we're ready to get back to it. And now players like Isak, McAllister, hopefully they've got a little bit more fitness in them too. They can kick on. It's not just them that need to kick on, but, I'm hoping it's time now. It's time. We haven't quite been ourselves since the start of the season. And now I'm just hoping that, the whole staff has gotten together and figured out a few things, made a few adjustments that they're prepared to implement in training. And we can just hopefully, leading into this November international break, can just ride a wave and go from there. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Isak. Sweden are all but out of the World Cup now. Barring a miraculous set of results, I think they're pretty much out. And I've just seen this stat, and I'm just right stunned by this. But John Dahl Tomasson, who's the manager, has been sacked. He actually becomes the first Swedish manager in their entire history to be sacked. Never sacked a manager.
And they're consistent. They seem to be a consistent team at the World Cup and at the Euros, and especially in a 48 World Cup or 48 team World Cup year.
Yeah.
For them to be on the brink of elimination and be all out, it's shocking with the quality that they do have. They're not one of the top 5-10 nations in the world, but they do have the players that can at least get you to a World Cup and maybe even get you results in the group stage and maybe even out of it. So that's surprising.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Tomasson, the manager, has taken the fall, but there's been plenty of criticism for Alexander Isak. A lot of Swedish fans, a lot of their pundits are saying that his decision to effectively go on strike in the summer has meant that he's had no preseason, and his performances that he's shown for both club and country, that this is a result of him not training during the summer, and it's hard to kind of argue against that, and I suppose the argument is that could he have done it a different way? Could he have put his foot down and said, look, I want to go, I'm leaving, and he could be public about it, but then still train and still go on pre-season so that he is ready to make that move. Once he comes to Liverpool, he's just ready to go. Do you think that was maybe a mistake in hindsight?
Yeah, and I think I can kind of pivot to American sports. And if a player is on strike with a contract or wanting a trade or a move in general, football, even though it's a team sport, if you're a quarterback, if you're a wide receiver, you can still get those repetitions in. If you're a basketball player, you can play pickup and you can do all these things. In football, it's a little bit different. You can do your individual training, especially as a striker, but you're not getting the kind of fitness. And so I think in European football, because I'm saying American football too, it's very different. You see it at all levels of the game, how what you lose in 2 to 3 weeks. I've heard Gary Neville say it on multiple podcasts, from the end of a season in May, and then you're starting up in preseason, what you lose in just 2 weeks alone. It's staggering. And so there's definitely, and we've talked about it with McAllister too, just the fitness issue and getting kind of back up to speed. It's been an issue for Isak. It's been an issue for McAllister. And to an extent, yeah, you have to, he's the 120-pound man, second leading goal scorer in the Prem last year. And so I think there are expectations from the Swedish perspective that he needs to be the one to fire them to international tournaments and lead them as far as he can. And if he's not performing, the rest of the team could struggle. But to defend Isak, not just because he's a Liverpool player, there's 10 other players on the pitch. There's plenty of other forwards that they have, maybe not of the quality of Isak, but it shouldn't just be all put on one player. You've had a long campaign to qualify for the World Cup. And if you're leaving it this late, it can't just be pinned down to one player.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I think from what I've read in terms of their reaction, it's that they see him as being by far their best player. He's like head and shoulders above everyone else. And so
clearly, yeah.
And then when you're playing in that kind of striker's position, you are at the kind of cutting edge. You're the difference maker, right? You're the guy that's going to score the goal. So I kind of see where they're coming from, but it's like you go from one end of the kind of fitness spectrum to the other, and then you look at Mohamed Salah, who's scoring for Egypt. He's now done in terms of qualification for the World Cup, which I think is great news for us in the sense that hopefully they're a bit easy on him now going into 2026. But he's going to be playing AFCON in so 2 major international tournaments he's looking at, which is AFCON in December, January, and then the World Cup in the summer. So you're wondering what kind of effect this is going to have on Mohamed Salah. That's like 33, approaching 34. It's a big ask.
And on the one hand, they're qualified, they're through. You would hope from a Liverpool's perspective that he's got AFCON and just after the new year, and that maybe you're hopeful as, in Arne Slot's perspective, hey, can we not let him go into the next international break? But at the same time, that's their last international break before AFCON from Egypt's perspective. And so you just have to hope that, one, he stays healthy when he goes to the November one, and then two, that just he can kind of put his full focus on Liverpool Football Club until January, when he's going to have to be the main man for Egypt. And so he's got a lot of football to play. We've talked about it. I think there was one a couple of years ago with Pedri was really under the microscope of Euros, World Cup, Olympics, right? Playing every game with Barcelona, playing every game with Spain, just nonstop, and it led to an injury, and he was 18. Now, if Salah's going to be 34 by then, who knows what the effect will be on him. But from our perspective as a club, we need to hope for the best with him, and that he can take a little bit of pressure off himself. He can look ahead for the next 3-4 months and try to get Liverpool in as best of a position as possible in the league, in the Champions League, in the Cups, for when he does come back from AFCON, that he can just pick up where he left off.
Yeah, it's a strange one with Mo this season, I think, with AFCON, because he hasn't had the best start, and normally we think, oh God, AFCON, it's just going to wreck his season. But in a strange way, you just think that maybe it will be a good thing for him if he goes to AFCON and he wins it. He's got to win it, right? And then he comes back and he's like, right, he's raring to go. AFCON's done. I'm African champion. Let's go and do the Premier League. Let's go and do the Champions League. So you just hope that there's that momentum there for him when he comes back for the rest of the season. But the other big news this week in terms of the club was that this week, also marked 15 years of FSG ownership of Liverpool. And, was it interesting to kind of look back on, on that kind of, the ownership period of when they came in. I remember when we got taken over, there was a lot of suspicion because back then there weren't as many American owners of Premier League clubs as we have today. And for us as Liverpool fans, we'd experienced firsthand the absolute kind of chaos of Hicks and Gillette. And, we've seen the horror show that is Manchester United. And we were a bit nervous about another group of American owners. And this time, they're kind of investors. They're kind of hedge fund guys. And you think, oh God, what's their kind of, what are they looking to get out of this? But overall, you have to say that in terms of where we were on the brink of administration. That's how close it came. We were on the brink of administration. These guys have come in, and you've got to say that there's not a lot that you can throw at their door in terms of negatives.
Yeah, and I'm 29 years old now, so 15 years ago I would have been 14. That's kind of around the time where I've been following sports my whole life, but kind of the perspective of how important ownership is from a sporting perspective for a team, for a club, kind of came to me around that time. And so it was around the time that Hicks and Gillette were, almost ran the club into the ground, and I kind of made myself educated on that and all that stuff. And when FSG came in, it kind of, it was a breath of fresh air because of, effectively they saved the club. There have been instances, with the Club World Cup and then the ticket prices. I'm sure you can speak about that a little bit more from your side of the pond better than I can, because, ticketing here in the US is very much, it's a whole different thing compared to over there. And so those were definitely two blemishes, I would say, on their record. From my perspective as well, it was always in transfer windows where I was never expecting what we did this summer. That was never the expectation, and just kind of like, we need to spend 200 million plus, in net spend, whatever, every year. It was more of just, can we get that one more? The season we went after we won the league, got Thiago and Diogo Jota. I was like, can you get a center back? And we waited and we saw what happened. It was just, there've always been a couple summers where it's like, yes, okay, just one more. And it always irritated me. And then we'd go a summer without really signing anybody. Like last summer, I was extremely irritated because we just, new manager, give him a player or two. I understand, you don't want to spend. You've seen what Manchester United have done, and Chelsea, all the spend and then manager turnover, spend, manager turnover. And so you're stuck with a pool of players for the next manager that they don't want. And so from that perspective, I understood it, but it was always just, one more to just give us that full squad. But in terms of the stadium, I'm hoping I can finally get to the stadium in the next 18 months. I would love to see, all the renovations, everything that they've done with that. But they've had, blemishes, like I said, with those other things, but just, it's been a 15-year process. It hasn't been an overnight process, and we've seen that, and it feels like we're finally seeing the stability. But now that, I see other clubs and other pundits and all that stuff talking about, we are kind of the staple, the structure of the club from top to bottom is as close to perfect as you can get. And I think that clubs want to model after that, but they want to do it in 18 months or less. And so what we've built, it's, it gives you comfort as a fan knowing that even if anything goes wrong, it's just, in terms of just what's going on the field right now, it's just, I know the club is in a position to be stable for the next 10 to 15 years, as long as they're around. They're doing things in the background that we don't see. It's just, it's good to, it gives you a good sense of comfort knowing that the club's in a good place, knowing there are multiple clubs all over the world, but in England that are, fighting for their lives, year in, year out. And so we're really fortunate to have the owners we do.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think that, the key word there, stability, is massive in sports, in elite sports, because what you want is you want your manager and the team on the pitch just to be focused on the football on the pitch. You don't want them worried about the ownership. You don't want them worried about some kind of, some crazy owner who's just like doing really kind of unpredictable things. And I think that's one of the things that, FSG have brought is a real kind of stability to the club. And it's funny to say this because they are, they're overseas owners. But for me, looking at a long perspective, they're very old school owners in a modern context, if you know what I mean, in the sense that you don't hear from them much, which the irony is when I was growing up, no one wanted to hear from the club owner. It was like almost like, just shut up, okay? There was this kind of saying in English football, which is, look, Brian Clough, I think, said it, is legendary Nottingham Forest manager. He just said, look, the owner is there just to sign the checks. Okay, I don't want to hear anything from him in public. Just sign the checks. And there was very much that kind of feeling in English football, is that we don't want to know who the owner is. We really don't want to. We don't care about it. Just make sure that the club is run well. And it's funny that in this kind of modern kind of social media age, it's almost kind of flipped on its head, because then you hear fans saying, "Oh, we never hear from the owner. Nobody hears from the owner. He's got to engage with the fans." But FSG are kind of, we're just going to build the platform, okay? We're not going to be talking much in public. We're just going to build the platform in the background, and then you, the manager, and the players, you go out and perform as best you can. And I think, as you said, they've made a few missteps, which I'm going to be really generous and say I think that it's down to more of a kind of a cultural misunderstanding as opposed to anything inherently kind of untoward. I think that, as you said, the culture of ticket pricing in England is kind of different, and even things like the kind of European Super League, which I think in an American context would be like, well, it's like really exciting, whereas I think in England it's where if you give any English football fan a choice between watching them play their bitterest English rival or to play the kind of European super elites every week, no, I want to beat Manchester United. That's what we're here for. And so I guess I'll give them a pass on that, because everything else, even down to the stadium. I mean, I put out an episode the other day about FSG's 15-year ownership. I think the stadium one was the biggest one for me. And I think what they also did with the Boston Red Sox, because I think there was a lot of talk about, is it Fenway Park?
Yeah, Fenway Park. It's as similar to Anfield as you get kind of in Major League Baseball.
Exactly. It's not like this huge, there are bigger stadiums, there are more kind of, modern kind of sports complexes, right? But, the feeling was that the owners like John W. Henry, etc., they came to Anfield and said, no, we can't get rid of this stadium. We've got to build on it, because it's such a advantage for us. So why give that up? And so I think that shows you that these are kind of serious sports owners. They're not just in it for the money. They want to win. And so all these kind of critics that I hear saying that, oh, they just want to increase the value of the club. I'm like, yeah, but that just means that we're going to win, right? If the value of our club is going up, that means we're doing something right. That means we're winning. Our value is not going to go up if we haven't won Champions Leagues or Premier Leagues, right? So one kind of follows the other. So, but I'm interested to hear what your view is in the US in terms of what is the view of FSG, kind of in general, as as owners. They famously took the Boston Red Sox to a World Series win after I don't know how many years, 80 years or something. I think they own Pittsburgh as well in the NHL. So are they seen as good owners, as kind of reputable owners?
Yeah, and I think they're not mentioned as much with the Red Sox as they are with Liverpool. I would just say in overall
Really?
media, but when the Red Sox are winning, or when they won their first World Series in, I believe, 86 years in 2004. I think they took over in 2002 from the Red Sox. Was they knew what they were getting into. They knew it was a sleeping giant. And overall, I mean, since then, I think 2004, 2011, 14, maybe, I think they've won 4 World Series titles, maybe 3 since they've been the owners. But they're talked about, occasionally they get brought up because I think they have a stake in the Patriots too. As just what they do in the background. They're not flashy. They're doing a lot of stuff in the background, but they've reawakened a sleeping giant in the Boston Red Sox. Liverpool FC kind of gets talked about occasionally in the American media, but this is usually when they're talking about baseball in the playoffs or NFL, or occasionally the NBA, they'll get brought up. But they're considered, yes, great owners. And in the American media, they're not really given their credit for Liverpool. It's more the Red Sox, like I've mentioned, but yeah. I think they're considered as kind of what we've talked about in England, how with the structure and the stability of the club, they're kind of put on a pedestal a little bit as this is what it's like to be a top owner and what you want to replicate if you are coming into ownership in America.
Yeah. No, they've had a very, very good 15-year period, and let's hope that continues. Okay, we're going to go for a short break, and when we come back, we'll start previewing the weekend's game against Manchester United.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out as the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone, AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the description to learn more about Zencastr.
Louis Easton is just so much better doing the Zencastr ad than me.
I was going to make a comment. Yeah. Well done.
100%. It's just like, I'm sure Zencastr get a spike in terms of people signing up when he does it. But all right, we're back in Premier League action this weekend against bitter rivals Manchester United. They're the visitors to Anfield. It's a Sunday game, 4:30 p.m. UK time kickoff, and that's 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. I'm pretty down with my US times now.
Yep.
Yeah, good. Irby, it's Manchester United, game of the season, as far as I'm concerned. But again, with the form and the results of the last 3 games, 2 back-to-back defeats in the Premier League, 1 in the Champions League. I mean, it was a big game before that run. Now it's become even bigger now.
It's a big game in terms of, just where we stand on the table. But it just historically, it feels like in my lifetime, Liverpool and Manchester United have never both been competing for the league, both competing for maybe for European trophies, but consistently not the rivalry of Liverpool Man City. Like, we're the teams going for it. One's always up, one's always down, at least in the league. Yeah. And so you talk about league form there. One thing I've learned from this match is it doesn't matter where either team sits in the standings. When Manchester United was the dominant team, they'd come to Anfield and we'd be up for it a lot of the times. And in recent years, I mean, how many 0-0s did we have under Jurgen Klopp in those games when we were the clear team to beat, whether it was going to Old Trafford or coming to Anfield? And so it's one of the games like Everton where form, I feel it can go out the window. And so I believe Manchester United has won their last 2 matches in the Prem. Is that correct? Yeah. And so they're coming in maybe hoping they've turned the page with Amorim a little bit while we're riding a 3-game streak without a victory, and so form will go out the window. It's going to be emotional. I'm just a little bit old school romantic. I'm just hoping it has a little bit of needle and nastiness about it. It's become a little bit more, I don't want to say friendly, but I feel like the players are are a little bit more friendly with each other now than they used to be, especially pre-game and post-match. But what a game to potentially bounce back, right? Beating your rival back at Anfield. It's just the most historic rival, the bitter rival. Just what a time to go and do it, right? It's the one game that kind of, as a coach, as a player, and even as a supporter, I feel level-headed and calm. It's the one game that kind of takes me back to as a player where I'm watching on my couch. I'm screaming I'm really getting emotional. I'm screaming at the TV. Steven Gerrard's red card 40 seconds into his final match. That is me. Like, there's moments in the game where I'm just like, I want to 2-foot someone as a supporter, and I know I can't. But it's the one game that just gets me. I just see red for 90 minutes, and I'm like, okay, what just happened? I have to go back and watch. And so I'm up for it more than anything right now, especially after this break and the form we're in. And so I want to just take it to them. I would love nothing more. I know that's
Absolutely.
a lot.
Yeah, no.
But I get very emotional about this one, especially with so many friends and so many people I've known over the years. I grew up, I got so much crap growing up being a Liverpool supporter when Manchester United was at the top. Yeah. And so the amount of times I would get, just the amount of stick I would get in school, and now being on the end of where we are now, on the success we have, I can give it back to him a little bit, but it's the one game where it really gets me going.
It is. It's the big one. And I do think that this one is, it does have its own kind of storyline, this particular fixture and where the clubs are coming into this game. Obviously, we're the defending Premier League champions. United are still kind of struggling. They're still kind of trying to find their way under Ruben Amorim. But as you said, the form always goes out the window when it comes to these big games. It's just like a one-off game. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, those Manchester United players are very, very good players. Bruno Fernandes is a very, very good player. They've got very good players in that team and in that squad. And the other point that you made, which is a really fair point as well, is that sometimes when you have really good teams and they've got to go out and play football, like Manchester United have got to do most weeks if they're playing against Brighton or if they're playing against Sunderland. But when you have a really good team who might not be performing well, but the players, player for player, they're very good. And the coach just says, right, we're just not going to lose this game today, okay? And as you mentioned, we had that in the Klopp area a few times where we were streets ahead of Manchester United, but there were a few 0-0 games because you've got 10 high-quality professional footballers who have just been told, don't come out of your half and just sit there. And that's really hard to break down. So I can see, United playing a really kind of deep game and trying to catch us on a counter-attack because our kind of perceived weakness, if you like, or the areas that, we've got to improve on are those fullback areas, and that's been highlighted by the fact that there hasn't really been a consistent, kind of selection in those areas. It's sometimes it's Frimpong, sometimes it's Conor Bradley, and the left back position is swapped between Kirkes and Robertson. So do you think that's an area that United are going to try and exploit? You've got Ahmad on one side who's really quick, to try and just get behind Liverpool in those fullback areas.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Just from a tactical perspective, I think that's exactly what they're going to do, and they're going to sit back, maybe behind the ball. The back line will be 5, and then when our outside backs, are going forward, that is going to be the area they target. And when they can win the ball high up in a dangerous area, whether we've turned it over on our own by a silly pass or forcing something or over dribbled, I think they're going to try to jump and play the channels. Because like you said, Diallo's got pace. Dorgu has pace, maybe not the final ball quality, but he's got pace. And Buemo's a dangerous player. And so they have the players that can, yes, definitely punish us on the counter attack, especially if we're bombing forward with two outside backs, no matter where the ball is. No matter where the ball is, if one's inverting, that would be my approach. I don't think Slot's going to ask me, but I'd be hopeful that just at least from the start, if we sit back with our center backs and maybe the opposite outside back kind of just stays home or tucks in, inverts a little bit to stop those counterattacks. And so that's going to be their approach. You would think, right? They're not going to come in and play. I can't see a world where they come into Anfield and say, "Yep, we're going to try to play our 3-4-3 system. We're going to try to play in the front foot and in your half and try to break you down." Because if they do that, I think we will punish them. I'm hopeful that's happening, but I think Amorim, as maybe stubborn as he is with his system and maybe not willing to change, I still think he'll be in that system, in that structure, but just bringing the block back and trying to hit us on the counterattack. Because I think he's smart enough to know, if I try to go in and play there and play with them toe to toe, they'll get in behind 40 times and maybe score 3 or 4. And so, yeah, I don't want to say it's going to be a frustrating game. I think but we'll know in the first 5 minutes, right, how it's going to be. Are we going to have 65, 75% possession, 11 guys in their half, and then we lose the ball? Are we going to have to be making those 30, 40-yard recovery runs?
Yeah. I mean, last season, Amorim, he brought this United team to Anfield, and it was widely expected that, we would absolutely hammer them. Ended up in a really entertaining 2-2 draw, and in truth, United could have and probably should have won it at the death, but thankfully for us, the chance fell to Harry Maguire. But do you think both managers are going to be looking at this game in a not necessarily tactically, but in a similar way, in the sense that this is a real opportunity, because if you get a win in this fixture, it's a massive fixture. It's the last game of the weekend. It's the kind of, flagship kind of fixture of the Premier League. You get this win and then use it as a platform to kick on, for Liverpool to get back on track and, start defending that Premier League title. And for United to kind of think, okay, we've taken a real huge step forward now.
Yeah, I think the narrative for both teams in all three scenarios, win, lose, draw, or for Liverpool or for United, I think a win for Liverpool and a loss for United, it's just the win. Okay, they're going to start building from this, and United, same issues, talking about Amorim. A loss for us, a win for United will be 3 wins for United in a row, 4 losses for us, and the conversation becomes, I don't know. I don't want to even think about where the conversation goes on a 4th loss. And a draw, I think both teams will just, something they can build off as well. And so it's a massive game for both teams, just based on where both teams sit right now and the form they're in and where we sit in the table and how we've both started the season. Pressure on Amorim, maybe a little external pressure on Slot, maybe not internally from the club, but I think about what a time. I go back to what a time to pick up 3 points and maybe start a new run of form. Yeah. It's just, what a better way to do it. What a better way to do it. And reversely, if you draw, if we're winning, if we set the tone and we allow a late goal, draw, or a loss, I don't know where we would go from there. I need to put that out of my head, because that's not the way I should think. I need to think about a victory.
Yeah, no, a defeat I think is unthinkable. I think a draw, we don't want to draw, but I think that at least you could take something out of it off the back of 2 straight Premier League defeats. You could say, all right, we've come back and now we've got a point, right? And then let's build on that. A defeat, and I think, alarm bells will start ringing. But the other thing that is interesting is that, we've had a few kind of fixtures already this season where we're playing first.
Yeah.
Right. And so, we've got an opportunity now then to kind of extend the lead or, whatever. And we've slipped up a couple of times with that. Now, Arsenal and City are both playing on Saturday. So there's an opportunity in the case of Arsenal to pull 4 points clear, and for City to go a point ahead. And even the other teams that are in and around, Spurs, Bournemouth, they're playing before us as well. We could be in 6th place before we kick off against United. Now, I know that, look, it's still early. We're 7 games in. But, there is that kind of psychology, right? That Arsenal will be going into this game thinking, right, if we want to be serious Premier League contenders, it's moments like this where we have to make it count. So we're already a point ahead. Let's go 4 points ahead and put the pressure on Liverpool. So there is that dynamic for Liverpool to deal with as well. The last game of the weekend, there could be 4 points behind Arsenal. That just ramps up a little bit that pressure that we've got to win this game.
Yeah. It's funny you said that because I pulled up Arsenal's fixtures right before you brought that up.
Oh, really?
And I'm also glad that you mentioned City, because I feel like the narrative has been it's Arsenal, it's Arsenal. And that's
City's there as well.
City had a down year. They had a down year.
Yeah.
We had a great year. We won the title under Klopp, but City had a down year as well. They're allowed to have one down year, and they've got Pep Guardiola as their manager. He's won 6 league titles, and so he knows. I think he knows from the perspective that Arsenal think they can be 4 points clear. Just from City's perspective, if they can be a couple points clear of us, it's always hard to catch them. And for Arsenal, it's been 3 seasons, but now it's on season 4 of how they really want to push on and win the league. And if they want to do it, Fulham's sitting in 14th place, and it's just that needs to be a match. Just London derby. We're going to go in. We're going to set the tone. We're going to win 2-3-0, whatever, and then we're going to sit back and watch on Sunday. Watch Liverpool hopefully drop points from their end, from their perspective.
Yeah.
So for us, we're the Premier League champions. We've been through plenty of title races in our time, come up short a couple times, but I don't know. I don't think that'll affect us as much as it would an Arsenal, a team that hasn't really won the league, especially under Arteta. And so I don't think it'll be a big thing that we think about. Trying to put this into words, but I think that we have the mental fortitude to sit back, and even if we are 4 points at kickoff, and think, no big deal. It's only 7 games. This is our 8th game of the season.
I agree.
Nothing to worry about. But let's go and do our jobs and turn this thing around, and not worry about other results. Yeah,
100%. I totally agree with that. I think that we do have more kind of mental resilience, and we've got players who have been there and done it. Not just last season, but the likes of Alisson, Van Dijk and Robertson and Mo. They've won the biggest prizes with Liverpool. McAllister has won a World Cup. So we've got players in that dressing room that know that 7 games in, 8 games in, 4 points behind, it's not the end of the world by any means. However, I think the flip side to that is that Arsenal don't have that mental resilience yet. That it's not proven. And so for them, I think if they don't take advantage of that early fixture, if they, let's say they lose or they only get a draw, and instead of being 4 points ahead of Liverpool, they're only 2 points ahead of Liverpool, and we win our game, I think that is psychologically it's more devastating for Arsenal, because it's just another thing to chip away at them, to say, you guys you're just never going to get there. You're just always going to fall at the last hurdle. But I'm just looking at their fixtures now. They've got they're away to Fulham, which, I mean, historically, it's not an easy place to go for Arsenal. They've got Atletico Madrid. I'm just looking at October going into November. They've got away to Fulham, which is their next fixture, and then home to Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. That's a Tuesday. The weekend after is home to Crystal Palace. Not easy. They've got a cup game midweek, and then they've got Burnley away before they go into the Champions League again. And they've got Sunderland away, and then the North London derby, which is towards the end of November. If you look at Man City's fixtures, they're at home to Everton this weekend. They've got Villarreal in the Champions League, away to Aston Villa next weekend, midweek cup game, and then they've got Bournemouth at home. Not that easy. And then Dortmund in the Champions League, and then home to Liverpool, which is towards the end of November. So, there's some really kind of tasty fixtures there, and it's I don't think it's going to be kind of plain sailing for any team now.
No.
I think the Premier League is so competitive that I think the points are going to be dropped here and there, whether it's defeats or draws.
Yeah, I mean, the quality of the league is it's so much different than it was. I mean, pre-COVID, I don't want to say who would have thought a team like Bournemouth or Forest would be where absolutely. They are, just the players they have. But it's just, we'd look back maybe 2019 and beyond and say, we're going to Bournemouth, or Bournemouth are coming to us, or Forest or Brighton, and say, yep, those are 3 points, those are 3 points, those are 3 points. And now it's just, obviously, teams like City and Liverpool and Arsenal are definitely better teams than them. But you're not sitting back and saying this is going to be an easy result, and then you're shocked if you don't win. It's just, the players they have, the quality they have, the quality of manager a lot of these teams have now. It's just, every game is it's worth watching, especially as a neutral. All the quality of players that are out there, and I remember the days of just sitting back and watching and just praying that City drop points and Arsenal drop points, and just true. It was an interesting thing back in the day where Brentford would get a point off of City, and you were like, oh my gosh, yes. Now it's like, it's not an unusual thing. One thing I was going to ask you about, just from an Arsenal perspective, and we've talked about them a lot on our podcast, but more from just a local perspective, being a London team. All these London derbies, I know some mean more than the other. Yeah. Do you think that's harder for London teams maybe to win the league because you have all of these matches that maybe have a little bit of, nastiness and needle about them? I know Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea, Arsenal. I know those are the big ones, but just when Palace and Chelsea play, is it the same as, like, not a Liverpool Everton, but is it the same? Is it the same kind of bad blood? Because there's just so many London-based teams, or is it just it's just another match?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of London teams. Mm-hmm. I think the ones that have got the historic rivalry is obviously Arsenal and Spurs.
Of course.
Spurs and Chelsea.
Yep.
Okay. Chelsea and West Ham, but even that is not really. There's such a gulf in terms of the quality between them that that it's not really that huge a kind of game. So I would say overall, no. It's. I don't think that's a factor in terms of whether a club from London can win the Premier League or not. I think that Arsenal. I think if you look historically in the last few seasons, where they've dropped their points, it's not against Spurs. It's not in the kind of London derby games. So I don't see it as that. And a lot of these teams have got rivalries across the Premier League, and so I don't see that as a huge issue. But I think for Arsenal, it's really a mental problem.
Yeah.
Up until the time that they actually get over the line. And then they can kick on, and hopefully that never happens. But let's talk about a predicted lineup, because this is quite interesting. Obviously, Alisson is out, right? So Mohamed Ashley comes in. I've actually got no huge worries about him from what I've seen. I'm quite comfortable with him. Obviously, I'd rather have Alisson because he's the best goalkeeper in the world, but because he's not there, I'm quite happy with Mohamed Ashley being in goal. I think the real question is in that back line now, because you've got obviously Conor Bradley and Frimpong at right back, or Szoboszlai, depending on how he makes that midfield up. Because if there is a perceived weakness for Liverpool, if Arne Slot is thinking, you know what, Amorim is going to be targeting that right back area, is he going to say, I trust Szoboszlai the most in terms of a tactical game plan? And does he stick Szoboszlai there, freeing up Wirtz for midfield? So you've got Gravenberch, McAllister, and then Wirtz, so that you can kind of shoehorn all of those players into the team? Or does he say, no, we're going to use Frimpong's pace and really go at Manchester United. So I'm really interested to hear firstly, what's Slot going to do in terms of that back four line, and
So
given that Konate is a doubt.
yeah, that's the thing. It's just the back line is definitely one, but I think there's Marmardashvili, Van Dijk, Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch, Salah. I think that's 6 players that are nailed on to start. I think those 6. So I think the big question is the back line is obviously the big one, because predicting that's going to be tough, because Szoboszlai is going to play. It's just, is he going to play in midfield? Is he going to play at right back? And if he plays at right back, Wirtz is playing. I just wonder with Joe Gomez too, if Joe Gomez is the one that's playing, is he saying he's got maybe the recovery pace to cover that right side too?
Yeah. I would go for Gomez. If Konate's a doubt, I would not risk Konate, because
no, injured, not at all. Not at all.
Then we're down to Van Dijk and Gomez doesn't have the best injury record.
Exactly.
I would start with Gomez.
Yeah, I'd start with Gomez, and I think tactically what I would do is Gomez and Szoboszlai right back, because Gomez, he's got the pace to recover and cover that right side. We saw him do it for years under with Trent, I should say. But just maybe that stability in a back four of just knowing you've got Szoboszlai, who defensively he's going to be disciplined, do his job, can also offer that kind of inversion into midfield. Gomez, Van Dijk. I would go with Robertson for this game.
Yeah,
I know the talk has always been these 2 new outside backs, and maybe we kind of eliminate that. Stigma is not the right word. They eliminate the conversation of, yep, that's where they're going to get at us, is on the flanks and on the counter of, where you have that player in Andrew Robertson that's going to be, he's going to understand when to go forward, when to not go forward, understand, how to cut out counterattacks and be disciplined in that, where Kerkez is just very much just, I'm running into the channel every single time the ball breaks into our half.
Yeah.
So the back four of Robertson, Van Dijk, Gomez, and Szoboszlai, for me, especially on a 3-game losing streak, is just, why not go for just more of a solid defense?
Yeah.
And that's my reasoning. And just, I think going into this podcast, I wouldn't have actually predicted that or said that, but I think just talking it out with you, it makes the most sense right now to just maybe have the safest. And if you need a goal, or if you're pushing and we have them, then you bring on one of Frimpong or Kerkez. I feel bad for Connor Bradley, but there are matches coming quick in the Champions League and in the League Cups, so he'll get plenty of opportunities there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think this is a game where you need experience, and you need guys that the manager completely trusts tactically. And I think Gomez coming in, he's not going to be phased by playing Manchester United at home, and him being next to Van Dijk. They've had a great partnership. And I think on the flanks, I think Robertson, I agree. I would go for Robertson for his experience. And with Szoboszlai, I think he's so tactically switched on, and he's got such an engine that even from right back, he'll be a threat with his passing range and, his running ability. So I think we're agreed on that back four.
And hey, what, though, real quick on Joe Gomez, what an opportunity for him, though, to prove himself and stake a claim. I know we're focusing on Liverpool, but in a World Cup year, we've seen Thomas Tuchel giving opportunities to a lot of new guys and bringing guys back, Ruben Loftus-Cheek getting brought back in. Joe Gomez will see this as maybe the final opportunity to play at a World Cup. And so I hope he takes that opportunity too. For that sake, obviously, I'm more focused on club over, not my country, but still on Liverpool. But just for him, what an opportunity to be the number 2 alongside Van Dijk and maybe get back into the England squad. And I think that'll give him an extra lift.
Yeah, that's a great shout. It's a great shout, and I've got to be honest. I wear my club hat. I didn't think of that kind of World Cup opportunity, but it's a huge factor this season. It is a World Cup year, and if Gomez can perform and stay fit, it's always his fitness. If he can stay fit, there's no reason why he can't stay in that team and let Konate fight for his position.
Yep.
So that's the back four. I guess it means that the midfield then kind of
Picks
pick
itself.
right? It's Gravenberch, McAllister, and Wirtz. Again, the spotlight's going to be on him, but I do genuinely think that he is going to come good. I think there's just too much quality there. I think he has got it, but I just think that the Premier League and him coming into a team that is kind of, in transition when it comes to personnel, I think has made it a bit more of a challenge for him. But then I suppose, what are we talking about in terms of that front three? Because I'll tell you something, I would start with Mo. I think he's had a lot of flack, but I think against Manchester United, he's got a great scoring record. I would play Mohamed Salah. The question is now, Isak or Ekitike? And then on the other side, you got Gakpo, who did score for the Netherlands. But I'm telling you something, I would start Chiesa.
Oh,
I would start Chiesa. Did you hear about his international withdrawal?
yeah.
I mean, he got called up by Gattuso. And Gattuso, I don't know if you remember him as a player. You don't want to mess with Gattuso.
Yeah. No, not at
And
all.
apparently Chiesa said, look, I want to stay and work on my fitness at Liverpool. This guy's attitude, I'm telling you, I just really believe that he's had
admirable.
and he's had a really good start to the season.
Yeah.
And I really think that a game like this at home, Manchester United, a massive game, I really think you could unleash Chiesa from the beginning.
That's what a shout, because if you do go for a workmanlike back line of Robertson and Szoboszlai and Gomez and Van Dijk, first of all, I think that frees up Wirtz a little bit, and so I think that back line would actually free up space for Wirtz to kind of go and do his thing and just kind of play like in a playground situation, like we're used to seeing him on his Leverkusen highlight reels. So I think that would benefit him, and I think the same thing for Chiesa too. Is if you have more of a back line and outside backs, particularly, that are more level-headed, just tactically more disciplined, I think that frees up Chiesa and Salah, but Chiesa to just go and play with some freedom. You'll have the space. You won't have that, congestion and we talked about previously about having to stretch teams, but there also just being too many players. Like, I feel like that frees up players like Wirtz and Chiesa to go and play with more freedom, especially against Manchester United, who we're predicting are going to sit back. No hesitation, I'd go for Ekitike, though, at the 9. I think he's the one that's scoring the goals right now. He's in form. He's confident. He's fit. I think from the start you have to go with him. It's hard to leave out, your big, shiny new toy in Isak, record signing, but he's got to earn it, right?
Yeah,
I don't think just the transfer numbers have to dictate who starts at the 9. I think whoever's performing gets the shirt, and right now it's Ekitike. I mean, what a start he's had.
Yeah,
he's been the one signing so far that's really truly hit the ground running, and so. I mean, I think he would feel hard done if he didn't get the nod. I'm sure on 60, 65, 70 minutes, we will see one or the other swap for each other. But if he's the one that's getting those 30 to 25 minutes, that cameo, I feel like he'll feel really hard done. It's just, what else do I have to do? What else do I have to do? And so with no hesitation right now, and, I love Isak and I know he's going to kick on, I'm confident of that, but right now, we need a result. We need 3 points. So I have no hesitation would choose Hugo Ekitike at the 9 for this match.
And the other positions, are you starting with Mo? Are you starting?
You've convinced me on Chiesa. Yeah, Mo Salah 100% on the right. I mean, I'm not worried about all the stories and the narrative of him not scoring and all that stuff. I think the lack of not having he's got new guys around him in all the. I mean, he's got a new guy to his left. Ian Ekitike and Isak trying to, build that bond and relationship. He's got
more importantly behind him in the fullback.
Yeah, there's no more. Look, Trent Alexander-Arnold's not there, and it just, credit to he assisted and made so much happen for Mo.
Yeah.
That relationship, and so he's got to forge a new relationship with an outside back, and we haven't really found him that guy that's going to play there at the outside back with him for the next. Hopefully 40, 45 games, whatever we would have left in the season if we made it to the final of everything. So he's got to build that relationship with someone. I'm sure that will come sooner rather than later, but he's Mo Salah, right? I'm sure you saw the Chelsea versus Liverpool legends and all the talk about Hazard and all the stuff on Twitter. It's just Eden Hazard, come on, amazing player, but
yeah,
Salah's still doing it, and
still doing it
at any time. Yeah, Salah can go on a bit of a streak where he's not scoring, and he could unleash havoc on anyone at any time. So no, you're not dropping him.
No.
You're not dropping him, and it's something radical, crazy has to happen for him to not be our right winger.
Yeah, no, I think you've got to stick with him. Okay, I think we'll leave it there. Quick score prediction for the weekend:
2-1.
Liverpool.
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to go for a 2-0. I don't sound convinced myself, but I think it's more.
I don't see how. I mean, what a time it would be to start keeping clean sheets. I think once we keep 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be too negative. I think we will. I'm not going to say we'll do it first. I think we'll concede, but I think we'll get over the line in this one, and I don't think we'll leave it late either.
Hey, listen, I'll take a 2-1.
Yeah.
But okay, that's all for today. You've been listening to the Daily Liverpool podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back to review the weekend's game, where hopefully we'll be celebrating a win against the old enemy and the Reds getting back on track in the Premier League. From myself and Irby, thank you for listening.
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.